And hello, my name is Rodney Johnson, and I have the pleasure of serving as the director for the Tarrant Small Business Development Center. Tarrant Small Business Development Center is an organization that is grant funded through the Small Business Administration, the state of Texas, and Tarrant County College. Our goal at the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, and all throughout the day is to support small businesses throughout Tarrant County. And so today, what we thought we would share with you is what we believe is some pretty important information to not only the business community, but particularly the small business community in Tarrant County and around the world. Today, we're going to talk about, have a continuing conversation about the relief package that is known as the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021. It's the one that was signed into law on December the 27th. By the President of the United States. What this bill is dealing with as it relates to Small Business America is dealing with the provision of $284 billion for new applicants and for applicants who are looking to make a request for fund or support from the Small Business Administration. Additionally, we're going to talk about another $20 billion that was set aside for what we call EIDL, Economic Injury Disaster Loan. And there are a few other loans and products and grants that are out there that are available that you, the small business owner, should be certainly seeking to understand and to conclude whether or not it is something that is applicable to you and that you should be pursuing, or if it is, perhaps not the best time for you or not the right product for you. So today's discussion is simply about EIDL. I wanted to focus on EIDL, Economic Injury Disaster Loan. A little background. March 20th, 2020 was the day that the coronavirus was declared a national disaster. By that declaration, that put into motion for Congress and the House of Representatives, the senators, to all put into motion the provision of funds to help with the relief of this disaster or from this disaster. Particularly, it impacted the individuals and their homes, their houses, those individuals who were unemployed. But for those who are probably listening to this, it impacted Small Business America. So let's go ahead and fast forward to what the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021 provided. As you know, and I know, the coronavirus is continuing to extend well beyond the time we thought that it would. It's continuing to have an impact that is deeper and wider than what we had all hoped and anticipated. Sadly, some 400,000 plus, I might add, Americans have lost their lives due to this one virus. And unfortunately, way too many businesses have had to close their doors permanently, some temporary, but some permanently. So in the interest of understanding the provisions that are being made by our government, there are two main products that are out there. One of them is called PPP and the other one is called EIDL. PPP, Paycheck Protection Program, is an instrument that was put together to help ensure that those who have businesses with employees or those who are sole proprietors and they are their own employee, have a way to continue to fund their employees and continue to fund the economy. So we'll talk about PPP in much greater detail. Today, we want to talk about the other side of that equation, which was called EIDL, Economic Injury Disaster Loan. Economic injury, meaning that if your business has been impacted negatively by the coronavirus, if it was a loss of customers, if it was a loss of revenue, if it was a change to your working hours, if it was, putting in the required mechanisms such as signage or plexiglass or glass or PPE equipment or whatever the economic injury is, and your revenue shifted, then you've been economically injured. To what degree is another question, but you've been economically injured. Now, the truth of the matter is some people have really benefited, but then there are others who have really suffered. So small businesses who have suffered or have been economically injured should be considering EIDL. The two packages, one is focused on paycheck. The other one most strategically aligns with working capital. So EIDL is the working capital side of the solutions that's being provided. Do not double dip. Do not ask for paycheck relief under the Paycheck Protection Program and then come over to the EIDL and use paycheck or payroll related expenses. Do not double dip. Keep your expenses separated. Keep your requests separated, but use one for payroll, and you have the ability to use the other one purely for working capital. So in talking about what today is the EIDL, there's a few things I want to go over with you. Then I want to conclude this very briefly by just talking about what are some of the most frequently asked questions as it relates to economic injury disaster loans. So, and there's also an additional feature that has been placed and has been put into place with regard to the Consolidated Appropriations Act. And we'll talk about that closer to the end. But that is called the targeted EIDL. So when we think about the EIDL, excuse me, when we think about EIDL, I want to tell you the purpose of it is to meet the financial obligations and operations expenses that could have been, met had the disaster not occurred. If things had not gone sideways with coronavirus, how healthy would you have been? This is intended to provide relief in that instance. The terms of the loan would be 3.75. And by the way, I hope you don't miss the word that I just used. The terms of the loan, which is very favorable, I might add, 3.75% for businesses, 2.75% for nonprofits. The length is 30 years, and then there are no prepayment penalties or fees. There's also no cost to apply. Use the proceeds for working capital and normal operating expenses. I'll give you an example. If you have rent or utilities, or if you have some fixed debt payments, or if you have, internet, or you have to buy goods, or you have a contract to give you your raw materials. Those are working capital type of expenditures that the EIDL is intended to help you with. Let's talk about collateral. Collateral is required if you have a loan greater than $25,000. If your loan is less than $25,000, no collateral is required. Is it forgivable? Well, the answer to that in a quick word is no. The EIDL loan is not a forgivable loan. However, prior to the Consolidated Appropriations Act, they did have a feature called the EIDL Advance. That advance was structured to where you could possibly receive $1,000 per employee up to $10,000 up to 10 employees. That provision has been taken away out of the Consolidated Appropriations Act. So with that being the case, understand this here. The EIDL Advance is no longer in play. The EIDL loan is in place. And let me put in here that it is in place for $20 billion until December 31st, 2021, or, and this is a critical or until the $20 billion is exhausted. So if the $20 billion never get exhausted, the program terminates December 31st. If the program $20 billion is exhausted, hypothetically, September the 1st of this year, the program will terminate September the 1st. It will then take an act of Congress and the President of the United States in order to provide additional resources. The maturity of the loan is about 30 years, and payments, and this is very critical, very important to understand, payments are deferred for a year. Interest will still continue to accrue, right? And it's easy to set up the payments and pay and to start that whole process. All you have to do is contact the SBA, make sure you have your 10-digit ID number and the rest of the qualifiers that they put in there, and then you can set up those arrangements, right? It's real easy to do that. So I have a few questions that have come into our center, that have come in, since the Consolidated Appropriations Act began on December 27th of 2020. There are some frequently asked questions that have come up, and we've tried to capture those, and those is what I wanted to go through with you today. So one of the questions, and the first question that a lot of people want to know is, can you apply for both the EIDL and the PPP? And the answer to that is yes, you can apply for the PPP and the EIDL. And like I stated, if you've not applied for EIDL before, you need to apply for EIDL and use those funds strategically for working capital. Reserve the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program, for payroll, for those payroll-related expenses. Okay. Next question. What can I use the COVID-19 funds for? As I stated, working capital, non-payroll related type of items, because you're going to use your payroll related items for the PPP, or the Paycheck Protection Program. Okay. Who's eligible for the COVID-19 EIDL? Well, applicants must be physically located in the United States or a designated territory. Businesses that have 500 or fewer employees, cooperatives with 500 or fewer employees, agricultural enterprises with 500 or fewer employees, most private organizations, faith-based organizations, sole proprietorships, independent contractors. There is a list, and this is important. And if you need a more exhaustive list or more exhaustive explanation, feel free to contact us at the TarrantSBDC.org, and we'll be able to help you determine whether or not your business and your industry is available or eligible for this. However, if you're into illegal activities, you're not eligible to apply. If you're into loan packaging, or if your business is a speculative, built on speculations, or if you're in multi-sales distribution, if you're in gambling, if you're into investment or lending, those are industries that typically do not qualify for the EIDL or the PPP. Okay, and so again, go to TarrantSBDC.org. So it's right there on the screen. Go to TarrantSBDC.org if you need to get further clarification as to whether or not your particular business and the industry that you're in is eligible. Next question. What if I'm not a U.S. citizen, but my business meets all of the other criteria for COVID-19 EIDL? Very good question. A non-U.S. citizen who owns 20% or more of a business is eligible if they are classified as a non-citizen national. Okay. Qualified immigrants include permanent residents with a current green card. So if you have a current green card, you are eligible. Next question. What is the process to receive an EIDL? It's simple. There's a 4-step process here. Step number 1, apply. Go to sba.gov/disaster. Go to sba.gov/disaster. There you will find a link to an application for the economic injury disaster loan. The second stage is to deal with the loan quote. And this is an estimate of the qualified loan amount. Does not mean that that's the loan that you're going to get approved for, but based off of the data that you've submitted, you're going to calculate whether or not you're eligible. The third step in the process is an application review, and that's done internally by the loan officers within the Small Business Administration. And then finally, wait on the decision from the Small Business Administration, from those loan officers, to determine whether or not you are eligible and have been awarded, or in some cases not awarded, an EIDL quote unquote loan. Okay. All right. So if you're approved, what happens? If you're approved, you will have an email that is sent directly to you along with some loan documents. The loan proceeds will be transferred to your bank account. It's not sent to a check. It's not sent via check. It's not sent via Zelle or Cash App. It's going to be directly deposited into your business banking account within a matter of a few days, somewhere between 5 and 10 business days. Here is what is critical. Retain all of your receipts, retain all of your data, all of your documents, so that if any questions come up after the pandemic is over, or by another party of the government, the audit agency, the IRS, or whatever, your documentation is already available. And then you can go to set up payments. You go to pay.gov, and from there, then you can make arrangements and start the process. Now, what if you were declined? If you were declined, if you received a letter, you will receive a letter from the SBA. Now, applicants can request reconsideration in writing within 6 months of the date of the decline. And there is a email that you can send it to. I'm going to read this very, very slowly. So if you were declined, you can go back and send an email regarding your loan being declined, but perhaps requesting, because you have new information, updated information, a change in your circumstances or whatever, and basically get your application for EIDL reconsidered. The SBA email that you can send this request to would be pdcrecons@sba.gov. Let me spell that again. pdcrecons@sba.gov. P is in Paul, D is in David, C is in Charlie, R is in reference, E is in Echo, C is in Charlie, O is in Oscar, N is in Nancy, S is in Sam, at sba.gov. For the sake of time, I'm going to encourage you to contact our office, and it is on the site here, pdcrecons@sba.gov. Feel free to send your reconsiderations request to that email. Okay. Next question. How can I check the status of my application? I'm going to give you a phone number. 1-800-659-2955. 1-800-659-2955. Very critical piece of information. When you go to the portal and you apply, when you successfully have applied, you will have received via confirmation a 10-digit number. That 10-digit number, most likely, if I'm not mistaken, unless something has changed, begins with the number 3. That 10-digit number is the information you'll need to give the agent at the other end of the phone call, and they will then be able to proceed to help you identify the status of your loan, or who the loan officer is in charge of your loan, or if there's any other information they can share with you. That's what you will need to do in order to do that. The next question. I received an initial loan quote. Does that mean I've been approved? No, that does not mean that. It simply is an estimate of the loan you may be qualified to receive. Okay. I received a loan. How do I make payments? Again, you can go to pay.gov and start making your payments. I have a business partner, but he or she does not want to be included on the COVID-19 EIDL application. Can I still apply? The answer to that is does your business partner own more or less than 20% of the business? If they own more than 20%, if they own 20% or greater of the business, they must be involved in the process. They must themselves apply. Okay. So, but if they own less than 20%, then their participation is completely optional. What if I need more money than I've been approved for? Well, there are provisions that allow you to go back in and re-request additional funds or increases. That's not to guarantee that you can get funds or increases. There will be a review, obviously, in order to do that. Let me suggest that you send an email. You start by sending an email, and there are forms that go along with that process. If I'm not mistaken, it may be as simple as the form 3502, and they may be updated, or an IRS form 4506-T. And by all means, before you submit those forms, make sure you check with one of our business advisors to make sure the form is filled out properly and that it is, in fact, the right form for the request that you're making. So again, I encourage you to go to tarrantsbdc.org. Let any one of our advisors help guide you through the process. Next question. What if I don't need as much money as I've been approved for? That's a very detailed question, and you do not have to take all of the money that you've been awarded. There's a process to not taking all of the money. So let me again encourage you, in the interest of time, to contact one of your trusted advisors. It could be your CPA, it could be your bank, it could be the Small Business Development Center. And if you want to contact any of those or contact the Tarrant Small Business Development Center, we can walk you through the process for what do you do if you receive more money than you're comfortable with or than what you can justify. Okay. Next question. I have multiple businesses. Can I submit multiple COVID-19 applications, multiple COVID-19 EIDL applications? The answer is yes, you can submit one application per eligible business. Number 14, I've been declined for COVID-19. What could be the reasons? The reasons, and I'm just going to read off a list of what the potential concerns would be. I'm not going to go into details on each one of them, but we'll be happy to talk in detail with you about what the particular reasons were for you. But you could have had an unsatisfactory credit history. It is a loan. Your credit history will be considered as to whether or not this is a loan you would be awarded. You could have unverifiable information. If the information you put on your application cannot be verified, is incomplete, is inaccurate, then there and questions, petitions went out to try to understand more, to gain a greater clarity about what it is that you were applying for, and they did not get a satisfactory answer. Your loan could be denied because they didn't get the answers to their questions, or the answers you provided were not clear or sufficient. You could be ineligible non-U.S. citizen status, not have your green card. It could be based off of the business activity is not eligible. It could be because the economic injury was not substantiated, meaning that you could be in a business that, the injury you think you had was not validated through the data, through the information that you provided. So we couldn't validate. The SBA couldn't validate the substantive, your claim of being economically injured. The other side of it is that take a look at, pardon me while my computer rings here. The other thing of it is that it could have been for character reasons. Could have been for failure to respond. Can I request reconsideration if my application is declined? Again, yes, you have up to 6 months to do that. I've already received EIDL and I've been affected by the civil unrest. Can I ask for more funds? That's one of the things in the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021 is that there are provisions in there, particularly on the PPP side, but there are provisions in there for if your facility was impacted due to the civil unrest or to any of the activities that was taking place around our country, any of the protests, and if your building facilities was damaged and your insurance company did not cover it, then you can get relief through the SBA, through the PPP and the EIDL. I already have a PPP and COVID EIDL, and my business has not recovered yet from the impacts of the COVID shutdown. Would I qualify for another loan? The answer to that is yes, and that is the reason for the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021. It's because we realize coronavirus is continuing to go on. Okay, so there are, and I'm trying to hurry. Given that my business has not yet recovered, how do I handle repayment? Again, you can go to pay.gov. Now, two more things. One of them is that I want to talk to you just briefly about what's called a targeted EIDL advance. Targeted EIDL advance is where they have set aside an additional $20 billion, where they've set aside some particular funds for low-income areas within within the United States. And the way a low-income area is defined is you have to look at the IRC of 1986, Section 45DE. Basically, it's IRS Code 45D, Section E. And it will define for you that if you live in an area that is 80%, whose median income is 80% of the state average, then that area would be declared as a low impact, low economic zone. And therefore, you would be eligible, specifically eligible. They're looking for you. They're wanting to help you. They put an express process in place to help those businesses, those entities that are in this low economic, low income community zone. So if that is your designation, then by all means do that. This designation goes off of census data. So if you need to know whether or not your zip code, whether or not your street address, and it's not just zip code, because zip codes can include both low income communities and high income communities. But if you want to know if your street address is in a low income community, then by all means feel free to contact the SBA, contact our SBDC. We'll be able to help you. We'll be happy to help you figure out whether or not your location is in this low income community zone. And again, I want to just highlight as we bring this to a close that there are multiple products that have been extended. There's a PPP loan. There's one called First Draw. We'll talk about that in detail. There's PPP loan, Second Draw. There's the EIDL, which is open until December the 31st. There's the targeted EIDL advance for low-income communities, open through December the 31st. There's also still in place some emergency EIDL grants. And then there's also, remember that as it relates to EIDL, used to be a normal grant up to $10,000 that you could deduct from the PPP loan, which is no longer in play. Lots of moving parts here, lots of information. Make sure you're communicating with the people who can help you the most, and you will be able to hopefully take advantage of some of the benefits that is being brought forward through the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021. Again, my name is Rodney Johnson. I'm the director for the Tarrant Small Business Development Center. But there are SBDCs all across America. There's over 1,000 centers who are equally committed to helping you understand what these provisions are and how your business can leverage the Coronavirus Act, the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021, and help make sure that your business receive the benefits you need to survive and sustain and grow. Again, Rodney Johnson, please feel free to contact our center at 817-515-2603. And we'll look forward to helping you. And if you're not in Tarrant County, we're very happy to point you in the right direction, give you the name and the contact and the information of the local SBDC, who again is committed to serving you. Please have a wonderful day, and we'll be in touch.